This story was told to me countless times by my grandmother. Not just to me, but to everyone in the family. It was one of those tales that seemed harmless at first, but grew darker and harder to forget with every detail she added. According to her, it took place in her hometown, a quiet village in a central state of the country, not far from the mountains. The events happened in the middle of the last century, during a time when daily life and customs were vastly different from what we know today. The Berlanga family, the protagonists of this story, were among the wealthiest in the area. Not only were they the richest in the village, but they were also the most influential. Back then, people used to say that the Berlangas had business dealings in major cities, likely in the capital or some important port towns. Despite their apparent success elsewhere, they always chose to remain in the village. There, they owned an impressive hacienda, practically a small city in itself. The property was so vast that even after passing through the main entrance, one had to travel several more kilometers to reach the grand manor. From this estate, they managed their businesses and exerted a silent but undeniable dominance over the entire village. Though they never directly engaged in politics, the power of their wealth gave them a kind of authority no one dared to challenge. As time went on, strange occurrences began to unfold in the village. At first, men started disappearing sporadically. People generally assumed they had gone north in search of work, which was a common practice at the time. However, it wasn't long before young men started going missing too. It was said they left without warning, leaving their families confused and worried. Then, the disappearances became even more alarming. Young girls began to vanish. Later, small children started disappearing, and eventually, entire families were never seen again. This pattern cast a shadow of fear over the village, creating an atmosphere of constant dread. The older women in the community began to whisper stories about witches and spirits. They claimed these entities would arrive in the dead of night to snatch people away. However, while these tales were chilling, they weren't even close to the horrifying truth. What was truly happening was far more gruesome and incomprehensible. One day, a farmer transporting a load of chili peppers to an important city, possibly Guadalajara, had an extraordinary encounter. A few kilometers from the Berlanga hacienda, a young girl, around 12 years old, appeared on the road. She was running frantically, screaming for help. Shocked by the sight, the farmer stopped his vehicle and let the girl climb in. One of his assistants, who had been riding in the back of the truck, came forward to help her. The girl was in a terrible state. Her body was covered in wounds and deep bite marks. The impressions were unmistakable. They looked like human teeth marks. Some were unusually small, while others were disturbingly large, as if they had come from a grotesquely oversized jaw. As they tried to clean her up, one of them accidentally touched her shoulder, causing her to scream in pain. When they examined her shoulder more closely, they were horrified to find a significant chunk of flesh had been bitten off. The bite was grotesque, with crooked, yellowed teeth marks clearly visible. In her desperation, the girl repeatedly urged them to flee and warned them not to return to the village under any circumstances. She insisted that the police wouldn't help them. Upon reaching the city, the farmer took her to a hospital and contacted the local police. An investigator came to the hospital to speak with both the girl and the farmer. After the conversation, he left hastily, as if he had stumbled upon something so urgent it couldn't wait. Strangely, one of the farmer's assistants asked for permission to step out for a moment, but never returned. No one ever saw him again. The following day, the investigator returned to the hospital, this time accompanied by an elegant man, a businessman known for being a powerful rival of the Berlangas. This man, it seemed, had enough influence to ensure justice would be served. Although the Berlangas were protected by local and state authorities, they couldn't escape the reach of this businessman, who, according to rumors, had spoken directly with Miguel Alemán, soon to be the president of Mexico. Weeks later, hundreds of heavily armed police officers arrived in the village. Their target was the Berlanga hacienda. Upon entering, they were met with violent resistance. The farmhands, maids, and workers of the estate defended the family with a ferocity that seemed almost inhuman. Even after being wounded, many continued to fight as if they felt no pain. When the authorities finally managed to storm the manor, what they found inside was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. There were hundreds of bodies. Some had been partially eaten. Others were reduced to mere bones. Among the dead were men, women, the elderly, and children, including infants. The Berlanga family, in their greed and twisted sense of power, had developed a dark obsession with human flesh. They didn't just kill their victims. They consumed them alive in horrific rituals. The victims were eaten piece by piece, while others watched in terror, waiting for their turn. The girl who had escaped recounted that she and her older sister had been captured. They had fought with all their strength to survive. In a moment of desperation, her older sister attacked Miguelito, the youngest member of the Berlanga family, and managed to gouge out one of his eyes. This caused enough confusion for the younger girl to escape. Tragically, her sister was not as fortunate. The Berlanga family subjected her to a horrifying ordeal, slowly eating her over the course of 2 days. Although some members of the Berlanga family were arrested, many managed to escape. Only Don Abel, the family patriarch, was ever prosecuted. Decades later, my grandmother recounted that children in the village claimed to have seen a man with an eye patch wandering among the ruins of the hacienda. Sometimes I wonder how much it cost the Berlangas to buy their freedom, where they might have gone into hiding, and whether they continued their gruesome rituals elsewhere. This story, as dark and unsettling as it may seem, is a reminder of the secrets that can hide in the most unassuming of places. The Berlangas, with their wealth and influence, were able to veil their horrors for years, leaving a scar on the history of my grandmother's village. To this day, the ruins of the hacienda stand as a silent witness to the atrocities committed there, a place avoided by locals and feared by the few who dare to approach. It's said that whispers carry through the wind on quiet nights, faint voices of those who never found peace. Whenever I think of this tale, I can't help but wonder how deep the roots of evil can run when watered by unchecked power and greed. Were the Berlangas truly gone, or did they merely transplant their sinister ways to another unsuspecting place? How many other villages, other families, might have crossed their paths? These questions linger like shadows, unanswered and unnerving. And so, this story ends, not with justice served, but with mysteries that will likely remain buried, much like the countless victims whose lives they stole. It leaves behind a chilling truth. Some horrors don't fade, they evolve, waiting for their next chapter.